It's another episode of Bucket List Living with Brad Norwood. I'm your host, Brad Norwood. And today, hey, join with me, Hog fans. You're going to know all about this, but we've had several requests. Many of you know I'm a big Razorback fan, a former super fan back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I've had the request to have this guy come on the show. And so we wanted to do that. He's a good friend of mine, known him for a long time. The CEO and chairman of the Burlsworth Foundation, Marty Burlsworth. Marty, welcome to the show.
Hey, my pleasure, Brad. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. We're honored to have you. Thank you for your time. I know you're busy with what you're doing, and I want to get right into it. You know, in the Bucket List Life Plan, we talk all the time about legends and about legacies. And we tell people all the time that, you know, legends are fables and stories, but legacies are what last forever. And fortunately, with Brandon, as I was prepping notes for the show throughout the week and for today, I got to thinking about Brandon's life, and I want you to talk about that story. But Brandon really fits both realms. He's probably the only person I know that fits both realms as the greatest walk-on ever. What a legend that is. But now his legacy that you have the benefit to carry on and doing it the Burls way. Let's talk about Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Brandon, he really set the bar high. I mean, he worked extremely hard, and there's a lot of great walk-ons all over the country that we celebrate every year through the Burlsworth Trophy. You'd be hard pressed to find anyone that had to come from a lower position or lower ranking than Brandon. Had to work his way up and prove to his coaches, to his teammates, and it was never through words. It was always through actions. And I remember many times, just in the early goings of his Razorback career, just occasionally I'd get to see a practice. Back in the day when you still could, and I could just see there was respect there, and not that I didn't expect that, because he always, gained everyone's respect, but I knew it wasn't because he talked to talk. He didn't talk to talk at all. He just walked the walk. And they teammates, you win your coaches over, boy, you got to win your teammates over. You got to win those scholarship players or those upperclassmen. Who are you? And within 2 or 3 weeks, they realized that they saw what they had. This is someone to be respected here and deserves to be at this program and can play at this level.
Yeah. And I had the privilege to know Brandon personally, working my days in sports information. And of course, he was junior and senior those years when I was a freshman. But I'll never forget, and Grant Garrett tells the story better than anybody. Of course, those guys were in the trenches together. But right. You talk about walking the walk, and Brandon was so soft-spoken, but he was one of those guys that when he did speak, you better listen up, because he had the right thing to say. And Grant tells the wonderful story that all the players know. They're running gassers, and the guys are throwing up and everything else, and Brandon just keeps on trucking, but something wasn't right. They knew something wasn't right. He had soiled his pants, and I'll never forget that day, because they laughed and carried on, but boy, oh boy, did he earn their respect for that. And I remember that day just vividly in my mind. And of course, Brandon was always his way, but big, broad shoulders. And he just walked right out of the Burl Center with his backpack, one shoulder strap on his backpack, like he always did. He just walked right on out there, showered up, and went on to class, And that's how he was. It was the lead by example deal. He was always known for, you see on the corners of sidewalks where one sidewalk intersects with the other, and there's always a path of worn out grass. Brandon never stepped across the corner. He always went to the corner directly and turned it 90 degrees. And that's just how he was, wasn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, he had his little things that he would do, it's just if something was working, keep doing it. So he would do things like, I can remember just skipping way ahead. I think it was going into his senior year. We're going to play Alabama, and we had we had won at Alabama the year before. We had 2 real close games at Alabama during Brandon's college career that we're talking on the phone, which we would do every night. And he said, all right, you wear what you wore, or I said, what did he say? Yeah, wear what you wore last year at the Alabama game. And I knew what he was saying because, we won.
That's
I
right.
said, okay. And at this time, we had several games in. I said, all right, I've got I know the cap and all this. I wore some, but now I'm not wearing any of that this year. And he knew he's like, we're undefeated. You didn't wear the Eagles. There's this pause, silence. He goes, okay, don't wear it. Make a decision right there. Which way am I going to go?
Right.
But everything had to be a certain way, and it was. There's a lot of funny stories about that. Just about, Jodine Davenport and Chad Abernathy and Grant and Russell Brown and Ryan Hale. They got some great stories.
Got some great stories created.
Absolutely.
One of probably the most unique bonds especially in the history of Arkansas. That's probably one of our greatest offensive lines ever that really gets overlooked. And the guys that even the men they've grown up to be today is just incredible. I know those guys are all still in touch. I see Joe Dean still here around town and
Yep.
Ryan here and there. So it's just great to know those guys. And again, I had just a small part of being able to get to know them.
Because they were really disrespected the year before. I don't know, we ranked real low in rushing. Yeah. And so that offensive line came into the 98 season with a big chip on their shoulder. And Brandon would tell me, he said, we're much better what they put us at. And I don't know exactly, I can't remember exactly what we ranked, but we ran the ball in 98. Well, we do everything in 98. You got that senior class that's coming back, and then you tell that offensive, you basically disrespect the offensive line. And that was great. Like you say, that's a great group of guys, and they just weren't going to be disrespected.
98 was a special season too, with the 8-0 start. We can't talk about greatness without talking about some of the failures, and everybody knows what happens when we go 8-0 into Tennessee. Gosh, I remember just being there with 1:54, looking at my buddies on the clock and going, we really did it. We really beat Tennessee. And then it happens. It's known as the Sterner stumble, but give insight. What was, he tripped over Brandon's foot, and what was Brandon's mindset on that? What would he say the story was there?
Well, of course, he's going to take responsibility for it. I know they changed the play up on earlier that week. It was a play they ran, but they just made a little change. He said they ran that same play earlier in the game without any, and then there was just a little mix up. They ran it, and not everyone got together on exactly what they were doing, and it wasn't ran exactly the way that they changed it that week. But he said they ran it correctly earlier in the game, and that time they did not, and it was just at the wrong time. But he certainly would took responsibility for it, and would I remember being in the locker room with him back then, and people say, why were you in the locker room? Well, we've seen the movie Greater, and my character's on the sideline with a camera. That's what I did back then. And that was actually the business I was in privately, but I would shoot for our local newspaper, which was great. I had access, and back then in those days, as you could go anywhere. Upstairs in the locker room, visiting home, loop inside that stadium, wherever you were. And but I was in the Tennessee visitors locker room afterwards, and of course Clint's got a massive crowd around his locker, and I'm standing there with Brandon. We walk by his locker, and he's like, he shouldn't be, that's not his fault. He shouldn't be having to take that. And it wasn't like it was bad, but you got to cover the game. You got to ask the questions, and to Clint's credit, of course he was putting it all on him. But Brandon wouldn't let that happen.
Well, and that's what made that team so great, was all 11 that were on the field, all 22 that always played. I think there was a total of about 37 guys that played in the roster constantly that year, and every one of them would take the brunt of that. They'd take credit for the wins individually as a team, and then individually they took credit for the 2 losses that year, because back to back we go then down to Mississippi State the next week and get beaten. what a 1-2 gut punch that was for that team. And I know Brandon had already graduated, and we'll get into that next. What redemption that was. And I remember being in 99, the Tennessee victory in 99, what redemption that was for Clint and those guys to go out and win that redemption game. Just bittersweet right there, the sweetness of that victory.
Yeah, I was really, really happy for Clint, for that game, and for Anthony, who caught that winning pass, and yeah, I mean that was tremendous game, and same score. Same score.
Sure was. It was unbelievable. So, well, and again, so let's get back into Brandon a little bit. And I'll never forget the day I'm standing in Yoakum Hall, Marty. And of course, back then, we didn't have cell phones. And I mean, they had just started coming around. It had to be after dark before you could call somebody for free,
Right.
And I remember that evening, the calls started coming in, and one by one, the phones were ringing down the hallway on the 8th floor of Yoakum. And word had come that Brandon was tragically killed in a car wreck just 10 days after being drafted by the Colts. Talk us through the emotion there. Obviously, just a terrible situation, but talk us through how the transition almost happened immediately with you into what's now greater, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and it's that day. I mean, of course, terrible memories, just like you said. Not a good day at all, worst day ever. But when he was not home when we thought he would be, I didn't think anything of it, because he's got held over at something, just didn't make mistakes, and he didn't have a certain time that he was supposed to be home, over at our mother's house, but he wasn't in, and so it was really surprising, for him to have an accident like that. And to this day, I get asked quite a bit, do you know what happened? Well, the report is he crossed the center line. How? We don't know. And we did everything we could I had people volunteering to people in law enforcement to, make sure everything was correct, and that there wasn't some negligence maybe on the other party's side, and nothing. No, that nothing was found. So we were clear conscious about that. We just never really did find out, or we don't know, and we'll never know. So that's why, actually, in the movie, it's a little vague. You don't know, and that's because we really don't know that. But the official report is crossed over the center line, and for what reason, we don't know. But after like you say, after Brandon's accident, once you get your breath, and you think, man, all that, and what a career you were headed for in the NFL, already, going to be a starter, not penciled in, written in ink as a starter.
Yeah.
And then for that to be gone. And so at that time, we had to decide as a family what we were going to do, just, is that it? Or do we continue to, to show his example, and to keep that out there. And that's what we've done. And that's our passion, and that's what we continue to do. So his accident was in April 28th of 99. And by June, we actually were incorporated with Brandon Burlsworth Foundation, and started working on things we could do to help kids, and because that's what Brandon had planned to do. And a lot of things we do to this day are things he and I had discussed, casually. Yeah, I think we ought to do that, like football camps, or let's have kids at games, things along those lines. So that's what's really cool about all of it, is a lot of it was some of the things that were his ideas.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so fun to be able to watch you guys continue to grow. I know when you began the foundation, of course, the kind of the baseline, it's on your shirt. And disclaimer, I told my wife this morning, I said, how in the world have I been to 48 straight Razorback football games, home and away, back in the day, and I don't have a pair of Burls glasses? Like, how does this happen? Right. But that was him. It was the old Jim Carrey look. It was Burls, right? Everybody knew him because of his glasses. And so part of what you do in the foundation, I know there was a book written entitled Eyes of the Champion. Talk about within the foundation, your Eyes of the Champion program that helps kids with visionary problems.
Yeah, I mean, we found this, and this is for children that uninsured are not don't qualify for state programs. In Arkansas, it's our kids, and so a lot of times, most of the time, we find these are working families, maybe a single parent, doing the best they can to make ends meet, but just don't have that extra for eye care for their child, and the child many times is falling behind in school. And then we find that leads, all the studies show that leads to, of course, self-esteem issues. Now that takes it to another level. And now in the child's eyes, and I'm not very smart. I'm not smart. There's something wrong with me. It's just eye care. So, I want to thank the Walmart Vision Centers, Sam's Optical Centers all across the state of Arkansas, as well as so many independent optometrists that we work with in all 75 counties in the state. And that's and this program is a game changer, a life changer. It's we provide free eye exams and free eyeglasses to children, and it's all administered through the school system, through the school nurses program. It's all automated. I mean, we've had this program going, I think, since 2007 or 2008. And it is a tremendous program, and we want to get. And in addition to that, another part of it is it's more than just eye care. That's really big. That's the big piece. But also, a lot of these children maybe come from less than ideal home environments, situations. Maybe they've not been given a lot of encouragement on what they can do, what they're capable of. So each recipient of the Eyes of a Champion program also gets a copy of Brandon's book. And now it's in the new print version, the greater version, the movie version, but it's still the Eyes of a Champion. So they can read about Brandon's struggles, what he had to overcome, to give them encouragement that I can do this too. So, it's just kind of a double-edged thing that is super, super powerful. And, we're working and hoping and praying to get this out into other states and eventually all across the country.
What a phenomenal deal. And I know the Indianapolis Colts jumped in and started honoring the Burlsworth Kids, and the Burlsworth Kids is even something else that you've added to the foundation. Talk about what it takes to be a Burlsworth kid, and then how you reward those kids with a lifetime experience and memory at Razorback football games and at the Colts games.
And the Colts games, that's right. We've had each of these programs going since the year 2000 was our first year. We actually, it all started at what would have been Brandon's very first Indianapolis Colts game. And Coach Burls was with us. We were in the owner's suite in Indianapolis. And they were doing a halftime, recognition and presentation, and at that time you're still in a survival mode, I guess you could say. I mean, it's just tough emotionally. My mother and I actually went to training camp that summer for a couple of 3 days, just so we could see the team for the first time, be around it a little bit, to kind of take a little of that extreme shock and off the edge off on that opening game. But we're in the owner's suite with Coach Burls, and during the game, I asked Coach Burls, this is the time that the new end zone the expansion was going on, the first one. That was when Brandon and Joe Dean, those guys played. That was all open. It didn't look like it does now. So I talked to Coach Burls. I said, I know Brandon's he wanted to do have kids at his NFL games. What about the college level? And then we went back and looked at the model, and that's how it all began, is with Coach Burls' blessing, and those seats where those Burls kids sat, the first 3 rows in that corner of the end zone, ever since concrete was poured, no one else sat, for a Razorback game. I'll say that, other than maybe this last year, maybe since with the COVID restrictions, we weren't able to do that program for the first time. But these children we bring in for the Colts games, they're it goes through, it's administered through the Razorback clubs around the state, and they select their kids off certain criteria. Of course, we're looking for underprivileged kids, limited opportunities, and we get them on a college campus. So we found it's grown. It's more than just going to a game. They get to hear about Brandon's story before they leave, get to the game, get to see a college campus, and then they get to hear that maybe I could go to college. I've never thought of that. So, and we've had Burlsworth kids that are at the U of A that have approached us at games and said, I was a Burlsworth kid and now I'm here. So, man, and maybe that was never even a thought to them that they might possibly be able to, have higher education, and just from coming from their environment, from their background.
Sure. And maybe not even honestly a thought to you when you started, right? And even Brandon, when you say, hey, look, I want to have kids at my games, and let's make this possible, and we're going to have the means to do that. And so you start and you've got that vision, and hey, this is where it is. And then what's that feel like when somebody that's attending the university now comes to you and says, hey, I got these glasses thanks to you, or I'm in college thanks to you, and I was a Burlsworth kid. Talk about that fulfillment. That's incredible.
Man, it makes it all worth it, and it's just all, it's I just see Brandon when I see it. I'm thinking that he's gonna like that. This is, and we do nothing with a foundation without. I mean, he and I were so similar in thought process that I always consider what he would, would he like this? Would it? But if I don't normally, if someone's approached us about doing a certain thing, I know whether it'd be right or not, but I know it'd be very gratifying. It is very gratifying, that to have children come up to us, or adults now, at the university, and then but we also have the scholarships and all of that. But it's got deeper as the Burlsworth Kids program, because to begin with, it was going to a game, hearing Brandon's story, and learning about him. But now, we've been able to make it even deeper and give them that college experience and see that campus and kind of open their eyes to, to what can be, what they can do as well.
Yeah, here's what's possible. That's great. Possible. Commend you on that work, and encourage you to keep on going, because it's great. Again, when you just see those glasses and you understand his story, man, you know what it's all about. And helping people achieve those bucket list experiences, if you will. So let's talk about another bucket list type item and foundation of his legacy. It became the creation in, what was it, 2010 or so, of the Burlsworth Trophy. The trophy named after Brandon, that goes right in his footsteps, pun intended, that you've got to be a walk-on. And it goes to the America's now, I'm going to call it the second greatest walk-on, because Brandon was the greatest walk-on to ever live. Started as a walk-on, ended as All-American, drafted 63rd in the NFL draft. I mean, just incredible, and came from basically nothing, like you've shared, Marty. Mm-hmm. But talk about now the Burlsworth Trophy and the process and how many winners we've had. Let's get into the trophy.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that is, everything we do is important, and it has an impact. I love the trophy. I love the trophy because every year, and it's open to all Division I schools across the country. And every year we'll have schools such as UCLA and USC and Connecticut and Utah and Florida. It's Michigan State. All the big schools, all the small schools, and not everyone has a nominee every year that they feel is worthy. But I think not this year, but last year we set a record. We had 83, I think it was, nominees. That's a big number.
Wow.
So and then we have a selection committee that narrows it down to the top 10 and the top 3, and then ultimately the winner. But these are guys. What I love about it is I get to hear basically Brandon's story every year.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. I was told I could walk on if I wanted. Had no scholarship offers. I had maybe we'd see FCS or Division II scholarship offers, but thought I could play at the highest level. And it's proving everyone wrong. And I just think it means more to a walk-on. Once when you come in there and you do have to prove it. And I know the schools do their best to treat everybody the same. I don't think that can happen.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's set up that way. I think they do the best they can, and they respect all their players. This is, across the country, but there's going to be a certain level of, whether that comes from teammates, probably primarily. I don't think it's administration or coaches for the most part, but that you're just a walk-on. And I'm a scholarship player, and not that those scholarship players didn't put in the work to earn that scholarship. And of course, that's what we wanted to. Brandon wasn't setting out his college career to be the greatest walk-on. It worked out well, but he wanted that scholarship as well. And believe me, I made enough phone calls to Coach Horton, and he answered them all or called me back and gracious and made him a preferred walk-on. And Coach Mentor did such a great job with working with him over there. But it's it wasn't to begin with. It certainly wasn't to the first choice wasn't to be a walk-on. It isn't with anyone.
Sure.
But you respect those that choose that path, less traveled.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned, sometimes those guys, they want it more. And the Burlsworth Trophy has become, maybe that's just my perspective, but it's the Heisman Trophy for walk-ons, right?
I agree.
For guys
I agree. Yeah, and we are part of the ESPN awards show now, have been for the last couple of years. We're a member, the newest member, because they don't take new members very often of the National College Football Awards Association, which includes the Heisman, Maxwell, Davy O'Brien, all the Blitnikoff, all those national awards. So that just says something for them to vote us in as a member. They saw what this award was all about, and that it was equally on the same level as the awards that they have in their association. So it's a tremendous honor for us to be a part of that. And we had a virtual ceremony this year, but normally we're in Atlanta for that award ceremony at the show, and have we don't have our winner announced because we do that on our own here, but have our winner recognized on the ESPN show every year. It's tremendous.
It is a fabulous presentation. Great to be there with ESPN usually, and then the presentation you guys do here locally in Springdale in conjunction with the Rotary Club is just first class. Again, it's like being downtown New York and being at the Heisman. But like you said, you get to hear Brandon's story. You get to hear the story of the three finalists every year that just follow right in line. They walk in that path with those guys. I think you'd have to agree, Marty, for the first recipient, for Sean Bradford, there couldn't have been a better person to fall at the timing. Could there?
No, Sean is tremendous. He actually, Georgia Tech, Atlanta, and he still lives in Atlanta. He's an attorney now, but Sean is a great ambassador for the award, and we certainly every year make sure that we include him as part of our ceremony. Even this last year, on our virtual ceremony, which I thought went extremely well. Thanks to Chuck Baird and Kevin Trainer, did a fabulous. Rick Schaefer, as always, all those guys did a tremendous job getting it set up and pulling it off, and we had a great virtual ceremony, and we normally have a reception for all the families in Springdale, families and the finalists on a Sunday night before the Monday ceremony. This year we did basically a Zoom reception, which went fantastic, and we're going to keep that in. We'll probably get back to our in-person reception, but during that week because I brought in our three finalists. They got to meet one another through Zoom, and then we brought in some previous winners that were able to join us, such as Matt McGloin, Sean Bedford with Fall joined us, and Coach Tommy Tice. So we're going to keep that part of it. That through all of this, I think we've all learned some things that are going to hold over, and that something that if it were not for the pandemic situation, we may never have done. But that was fantastic. And then my wife Vicki, she had the Zoom reception with all the previous finalist mothers, and with the mothers, and Grant Morgan's wife and his mother, and they all got to meet one another. So now you're part of this family. So it was extremely positive thing, and that's something we'll probably do the week of to get everybody together. But we learned a lot this last year, but it went really, really well.
Well, that's true Burlsworth fashion. I mean, just capitalizing on something that's not ideal, just true to your name, your legacy, and what you're carrying on through the foundation. So now, Marty, I've got to ask. This is going to be. I'm projecting you've probably been asked this 10,000 times already since Monday, January 5th, or whatever day the reception was. But on behalf of Razorback Nation, and I know it doesn't work that way, but how in the world did Grant Morgan not become the first Razorback to win the award?
I know, and I'll have to say, of course, we're pulling for it.
Sure.
But we don't have a vote. And I do know, I've been told, I've seen some numbers. That was extremely close. Now, generally they're close. I mean,
sure.
Most of the votes are pretty close. This was probably as close, or maybe the next to the closest vote we ever had. Man, I hope he's back in there next year.
Yeah, I do too.
Oh,
I do too.
Man, I hope he has another great season, gets right back in there.
It was the first thing I said when I saw he was returning, when he was coming back and capitalizing on the extra year. I thought, okay, maybe he'll get back in there.
Me too. I'm like, get it again, Grant. And I told him that. I said, let's just get you back. Let's just get you back and have another great year. But we're all pulling for him, and I know that wasn't popular, but that's one reason I don't have a vote, and that's the reason we're an Arkansas-based award, but we've got our committee, ranges all over the country. I mean, sure. Kurt Warner's in Arizona, David Baker's in Canton, Ohio, president of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Of course, you get Dan Reeves in the Atlanta area. Coach Hatfield is here, and Tommy Tice. And so Danny Ford's on that committee, but that's the reason you have a diverse committee, and Grant got a lot of votes.
Absolutely. Well, and hey, in Brandon's defense, Brandon's got to be smiling, going, "You picked an offensive lineman."
Well, that's true. Okay, that's true,
right?
And when I first talked to Jimmy Morrissey, who was ultimately our winner, of course, they all want to win it so bad. And that's what's, sure. I mean, over the years, it's got more and more just because of the, publicity and the, it's really heightened, the level of this award. When I first spoke with Jimmy on the phone, I always talk to each finalist every year, congratulating them on being a finalist. And I told him, I said, offensive lineman, I said, Brandon boy, I think he'd be rooting for you. I said, but he'd be torn too, because we've also got a Razorback. So how you feel about that? But I know Brandon, I think he feels the same way I would do. Oh man, a Razorback. But we got an offensive lineman. So
that's right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, I know he'd be happy to have another. Now we've had we've not had many offensive linemen. No, we've had 2 or 3 offensive linemen make the finals. We had one from San Jose State a few years ago. Mississippi State had one. Ben Beckwith a few years ago. But
right.
This is the first winner that was offensive lineman until our inaugural winner, Sean Bedford.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Let's get into now what's become maybe the most talked about and help propel the foundation forward along with the trophy. Those, football movies kind of became the hit with Blindside, right? That was kind of the big talk back then. And then this year, kind of Disney came out with the story of the Clemson player and safety. But don't get lost in the mix if you're listening. You haven't seen this movie. I want you to go watch the movie Greater. And Marty, talk about Greater. It's the Brandon Burlsworth story. Talk about, I know you weren't the director necessarily, but my goodness, you were involved every bit of that movie. And talk about the involvement and the impact that the movie's had with the foundation and the trophy.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't too long after Brandon's accident, I started receiving calls from, Hollywood, LA producers that would asked about making a movie. And of course I wanted to, our family, we wanted that story told. But it always comes back to, I had a question, what input would the family have on what was ultimately on the screen? And the answer was always none. Very honest, none. Because once you sign off the rights, we got to make a good movie. And so we didn't do those deals. We just weren't comfortable with it at all. And then we were approached in 2005, I think it was, Brian Rindle, who is he's from Alabama, but he's a U of A graduate and a business person there in Fayetteville. They came, he and his wife came over to meet me, my wife, my mother in Harrison, and said, I think we need to make, Brandon deserves a movie. He said, I want to make it. I don't know how to make a movie. I've never made a movie. I mean, I got good, complete honesty. He said, but I'm willing to learn and hire the right people. I'm willing to put my own money behind it. And then his wife, we've all had a lot of people have a lot of talk, and then maybe it kind of fades away. But his wife said, she made the statement, whatever he says he's going to do, he does. And she sold it to me. I said, well, I know what that means. And that's, follow through, which is everything, follow through. And so we signed the deal for the rights, and he did say that he made two important points, that family will have input, and we don't want to take Brandon's Christianity, his faith, out of it, because it wouldn't be him. All right, sold. So long process, a lot of hard work. Brian really, really worked at this, and I think there were 7 different scripts. Trying to raise money for the movie, investors, and then they go away. And then we had then the real estate market, 2008, 2009 kind of took a hit on things. Brian just he calls himself a walk-on filmmaker. I mean, he didn't have any quit in him either. So he just well, I can't do it this way. Let's find another way. So he worked some business deals and did some things and some investments to where he funded it himself rather than just take all that away, as far as other investors in it. And so that's what he did, hired a great director, David Hunt, who's from Springdale. And at the time, I mean, I think I've told David this too, when Brian told me who he'd hired, I didn't know who that was. I said, what's he done? Because Brian had told me we need a big, pretty big name to get real actors, into to sign on to someone like this. And Brian said, well, he's not done much, but this is going to be his big one. Okay, here we go. Thinking this is probably going in a good direction, but all right, I'm not going to meddle. And David Hunt was, next to Brian, the best thing that ever happened to that film, because he came in and got worked that script over. And in the movie, if you're familiar with the farmer, the guy that's the character with the overalls that's talking to my character throughout, that's David Hunt's contribution to the script. And the movie would be totally different if it weren't for that person, that, as I say, that mechanism to tell the story. And it's based off of, I've seen interviews with David, based off of my first year in the book, kind of my mental thought process or mental state and struggle. And but it was about 11 years before filming ever started, because we had 7 different scripts. Brian had hired a producer and a script writer from LA, brought them in and went through all of that, and the script that came in was really bad. I mean, Brian, the one he had written to begin with, was much better. But it went like good. Oh, that's a better script. That's a terrible script. That one's worse. Go back and rework it. But by about the 7th version, and when they told me they had a farmer character, I remember getting that phone call too. So we've got a new character. I said, okay. He's excited. This is Brian. So he's told the farmer. I thought, what's a farmer doing in a football movie? Here I am thinking, I know better. I guess okay, I won't meddle again. And then they sent the script, and then you could kind of see how that connected. And the actor just did a fantastic job on that. And I know Neil McDonough, who played me in the film, he said he read the script right away and said, let's go. You know, I want to do something that my family can watch, and something that's, you know, wholesome and Christian based. And you would think with a lot of the films that he does and a lot of his work, that would not be him, but he's a big time family man, and it's that's the reason he plays. He wanted to explain to me one day, I play bad guys because you know, they don't have inappropriate scenes maybe with women for bad guys. That's the reason I play those. So I said, okay. You know, he was wanting to make sure I understood that I'm not really a bad guy, but he said, I'm happy to have this film now that, you know, I'll be proud for my kids to watch. But it was a long process, and you know, 150 to 160 people on set every day. You don't see that, you know, can't imagine that, but we've been there some, and we weren't there every day shooting, but we tried to be there when we could. And you know, it took a lot of work, but well worth it. And we get emails every day from basically all over the country, people that have seen the movie. You know, so since it's on Netflix, it's really got a large audience.
Yeah, and it just, again, if you haven't seen the movie and you're watching or listening today, take some time this coming weekend, whenever you have some downtime, get your family, surround yourself, and watch the movie Greater. Just an impactful movie, and just tells the story. And I think you're right, Marty. I mean, adding the farmer to that is, thank you for sharing that, because you're right. As you're talking, I'm thinking, man, if that guy wasn't in there, you're right. It takes away from him. He helps make the movie, tell the story. And from a guy, again, who knew Brandon personally, even just a little bit, but knew who Brandon was, and knowing personally, boy, it did
You
a
think
great
what a
job.
challenge it is? That's what a challenge here, you know, to make a movie. And they had the choice that, well, do we, you know, we know everybody knows the ending. Do we? So they, you know, not spoiler alert or anything if you've not seen it, but you know, they start out with the ending.
Yeah.
And then go back. And well, that's, I mean, I just every time I've seen it, it's generally at a special event of some type that we're at. But every time I do see it, I see something else. Oh, I didn't see that. I know. Watch it again, I'll see some other things. There's deep meaning in so many of those scenes and those words that just incredible.
Whittling that stick. I'll never forget him just whittling away on that stick. Just an incredible story. Check out the movie Greater. Again, if you haven't seen that, and surround it with your family. What an impactful movie and an impactful life. Marty, it brings us to the end of our time. I want to thank you so much. I know you're a busy man. You've got a speaking engagement to be at today, and we've got glasses to put on the eyes of children. So thank you again for continuing Brandon's legacy, for carrying on the legacy yourself, and turning that legend into a legacy. Thank you for all that you do. We wish you the best going forward. For those listening or watching, what is the best way they can contribute, get you for a speaking engagement, and get in touch with you and be in touch with the foundation?
Sure. And I appreciate that, Brad. Probably the best way to do is just go to our website, brandonburlsworth.org. I think there's a drop down for appearances, or you can email info@burlsworth.org. That goes to the office, and they'll get it to the right person. But we love to tell the story. Love to keep grinding, keep going hard, and that's what we're going to keep doing.
Absolutely. He wouldn't have it any other way. We're proud of you for doing that, and thank you for that. Hey, remember, the bucket list life is a life worth living. If you can't do it any other way, do it the Burls way. Thanks for tuning in today. Have a great day.